You're listening to Zen and the Art of Endurance, your podcast for getting great at going long.
Well, hey there, all you Zen endurance freaks and geeks, and welcome to another great episode of Zen and the Art of Endurance, the podcast where we go long, and in this one, really long, and learn a lot about ourselves along the way. All right, in this show, we go over the East Texas Showdown, the 285-mile bikepacking race that I did. In this race, we went through two national forests, the Davy Crockett National Forest and the Sam Houston National Forest, which are big, thick pine tree forests, for 285 miles, round trip, half pavement, half gravel, a lot of it forest service roads, through some really just magical terrain. And yeah, for 285 miles. And one of the first things that I did is I looked at last year's results and calculated that the way to get a top finish is to not stop. So we're talking 23, 24, 25 hours, depending on the weather and the conditions, of just riding. And that's what happened. I ended up getting 14th place. Although I think on one website it says I got 16th, but it doesn't really matter. There was 70 something people in my division, and so I got a really good placing for my first time doing such a long distance race where you end up having to ride through the night. And I was even winning-ish. I was in the winning pack at the beginning of the race for the first hour and a half or something like that. Well, for the first 31 miles. Hey, quick news alert. Beep, 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 beep. I forgot to put in the show the fact that I have recorded audio on the bike while I was racing into my watch, and it's actually really cool. Unfortunately, the first bits of the race are really windy, and so you're gonna have to listen carefully and endure some wind noise in there. And I know that kind of sucks, but have faith, listen to it, and you just scoot forward and pass that if you just can't stand it. But there's tidbits of interesting stuff in there that eventually turns into audio of me at night, trying to adjust what's in what bottles with the sound of crickets and tree frogs and the sounds of the national forest at night in there. And it's actually really cool because it's a cool display of technology that we've rarely seen, where people record into their watches, because some watches now have that ability to record audio right into them. And is it something to use, for podcasting? Well, if there's no wind, yeah, it's pretty great. If there's wind, then maybe not so much. And so you can use it for your own judgment there and see if you want to do that someday. But for notes to use in future races, or pinpoints in time that are significant that maybe you want to use as data points, again, it's really useful. I try to keep track of how far into a bike ride does my peripheral neuropathy act up, which is like, usually it's a pain starts in my left foot, and I make a note. You can hear it, or I say, hey, I'm starting to get pain in my left foot at 90 miles here, or I think it's 70 miles. Well, I don't know. We'll find out, because I definitely say so at what point it is. And I use that for diagnosis of what socks worked, what didn't. And it's really, really neat. So please try to enjoy the parts that are windy. The parts that aren't are actually really cool. And yeah, so let's go ahead and play some of that now and get some mixed audio formats in here. Here we go. Okay, I'm walking my bike so I don't mess it up riding it. I'm going past the septic field that stinks. I was smart enough this year not to park next to. I got everything loaded up. 5 minutes until start time.
Trying to save as much battery as possible. Nice mix of cargo racks and no racks. So we're going to do Showdown first. I guess slow down second. Okay, I'm in the lead 3 right now. Well, there's 3 guys in front of me. It's just the 4 of us. Okay, I'm about 44.5. And my nemesis passed me. Huge sand trap. 30 miles in, and then a sandy road off the one. Had to walk a short section. And then decided to pee, and there's some water around different rocks too. And my nemesis passed me. Logging truck. Hang off the back of it for a while. Because I think I'm faster than him, but it's really hard to tell. Thick pine forest right now. The big group is broken apart. Now we're just time trialing. Everybody's in arrow bars. Really spread out. It's freaking awesome. I cooked myself riding with the front group. It was so much fun. So what I'm doing is riding off this guy's back. I'm doing the Ironman like 12 bike lengths because I know I get a little bit of draft off of it. And he's doing things that's also like standing. Unless it's to get blood flow to your garage, which I do sometimes. He does it a lot. So I'm going to hang back here and draft and recover my legs. Okay. I just got a call from Emily. My competition's really close in front of me, and I'm in 3rd. And I'm just riding easy. It's really shaded a lot. The potholes on the downhills on the ranch, the Forest Service roads got me nervous for tonight. Oh, then my chain started skipping really bad when I'm climbing steep uphill, which I don't really like. But the fueling seems to be spot on. 350 calories an hour. And supplementing on occasion with gummy worms. And the 2 times I've stopped to pee, I move the water one at a time, each time. From the chest bladder things, they go in the front of the hydration pack, into some water bottles that were more usable. Because those things are kind of hard to drink out of. And I'm being really careful. I could tell how Sherman's neck, where your neck gets tired, could really start to suck. So I'm trying to start sitting up more. And I think whenever I stop, right there. It doesn't like the second from the easiest gear. So what I think what happens is everybody goes super hard to try to stay with the brake as long as they can, and then it's just a death march the rest of the way. But that gets you so far ahead as far as miles per hour, because we were hauling. Oh, and Emily says I'm in third or fourth. I can't really tell. That was nice to get a call from her. I think that's it. Bye. So mile 72, my left toes have started to hurt, and that's my neuropathy thing. I'm trying to be really careful, even though I'm wearing the best socks I can for it. What the hell is that sound? Okay, there's a gas station at mile 76. I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to stop at Waitress. Not see his bike against the wall. There was like 5 people there. I think I just passed through the place where I broke my rear derailleur last year. I could see debris from trees last year that we had to go around. So I gave it a big middle finger as I went through. And then I almost crashed again while I was trying to record. So be careful, dude. Okay, it's 2:21 in the afternoon. It is 2:21 in the afternoon. It's almost 90 degrees. I'm on black asphalt. And it's really hard to get off the bike with that thing on the back. Hey, what's up? And I just don't have the gearing. So I'm going to walk this one little part because it's full sun. And I think I'm going to give my biking legs a break. I'm in 9th place. And I know that once we're at 102 miles, once we get to 112, there's a monster climb. I have more like prairie gearing, and this is a steep hill terrain. As long as I'm making forward progress, I don't mind. I was winning up until I stopped for water. And the third place I tried actually had water. So I had to unpack everything, try. I'm going to go here in the shade. I just got passed by another guy. That's okay. Because once we get to 125 miles, it's like almost entirely downhill with a tailwind. So I'm super stoked about that. So imagine this hill and a couple others I'm going to walk. Just because I ran out of gears. And I'm also trying to save my legs by doing something different. Kai and Emily both called to check on me. It's really cool. It's nice. Oh crap. It goes down and then back up again. Alright, I'll be back. I'm in 9th place, maybe 10th. But I also suspect a lot of these people are going to stop for the night. I'm going to try not to. Pass some people, maybe. So my chain climbing in the easiest gear, just skipping all over the freaking place. So I pulled over and waxed it with like a ton of wax. I have a little eyedropper thing waxed. While I was doing that, I got past what might be the first female on the Showdown, my race. I was riding with her for a second. I said I was having trouble shifting and just waxed the crap out of my chain. And she goes, "Oh, did you get it screwed?" And I was like, "I have no idea." We're about to find out. Got one of the worst climbs coming up. I have a 42 front and like a 34 rear. So it's not a good climbing gear. That's a little bit better. Okay, I just walked the first monster uphill. I know I've hit 50 miles per hour going downhill on this thing. Riding in this area. And it's funny because I have no problems with walking it. Coming from a fixie background, sometimes you gotta walk because you don't have the gearing. And I do not have the gearing. The people I see climbing it are just spinning. And I am not. Oh, and then I started getting a strain on the inside of my left leg, which is bad. That's my first indicator of I'm cooked. Okay. Probably took about 10 minutes. Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I wish I could climb it. But you got one more like this. I'm thinking 12 miles. And then it's easy. Almost the entire way down. My headphones are about to die, but I got a second pair. Put them on a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if y'all caught that. Guy pulled up next to me on the truck. In a truck. He was like, "You gotta watch out for hogs out here. Be careful." And he's right. Hogs run out in the middle of the road. You hit one. Anyway, I got a sandwich at the Elkhart station. I got 10 hours of battery life. This one. From Kai. And then I got 2 lights. But I think I got like 3 hours each. Maybe 6, I don't know. We're going to see what we can do. And then I got 2 headlamps. And what I'm going to do is just ride easy. My stopping and getting a sandwich was awesome. Ah, my hand's cramping. I've got cramping issues, which means I'm eating more salt or more hydration or both. So the temperature's dropping. A lot of it had to do with heat. It got up almost 90 degrees. So I'm just going to ride real easy because at mile one, there's drunks out like that. At mile 150, there's a big climb. And it's mostly downhill to there, I think. And I might be, we'll see, I'll let y'all know. I might be able to climb it since I took such a long break eating. I think I ate for an hour or something like that. But I really want to ride through the night, or as far as I can, the adventure of it. If I can't break 24 hours, I want to ride through the night and get kind of close. And see what it's like. I got my phone charged. I got plenty of power bank. I got plenty of battery on my bike computer. It says I got one climb here. At mile 145. That's uncool. Anyway, I'm going to take it nice and use the 10-hour light just to light up the road, and then use the other lights if I'm going fast downhill, which I'm scared because it's really easy to lose control. And it's so cute, Emily and Kai calling me, making sure I'm okay. I am having the fucking time of my life, dude. This is freaking cool. And then, yeah, I'm just going to go slow, which is okay because it's nighttime. And I got a rear radar light on. I don't think it'll last the whole time, but I got a second one. Yeah, I can already feel my left leg talking to me with a cramp. But the logistics of the route is, except for this one big climb at 150, everything's downhill to mile 250. Well, plus, little bumps. But then a lot of it's Forest Service Road, which is dangerous in the dark. I threw on my beanie. I got some dude up ahead of me with his lights on. I guess trying to make it safe for me or something. Sometimes people are just drunk and they're being helpful. I tried peeing while riding earlier. And I couldn't do it without peeing on my bike. So I just said, nope, I like my bike too much. And for me, it's nice to stop every once in a while and slow down. There's still 100 miles to go. So roaring by somebody may or may not pay off for this guy. I like having lights in front of me so I can see when people turn and stuff. All right, let's go. Okay, I'm gonna take a break for a second. I'm gonna check out this water situation I got going on here. I'm gonna dump out this caffeine stuff. I don't think it's doing me any good. It's making me feel sick. Gotta replace it with water. Okay. My toes are killing me. Got nerve damage from years of everything. I'm squeezing the bladders that are on my chest into a water bottle that between the bars. Something just jumped in the bushes. Like Bigfoot. This is Bigfoot country big time right here, by the way. Most sightings of Bigfoot, like in the south or something like that. If you enjoy that kind of shit. So I got to make it to Pennington or Penning something. Like 25 miles. On almost a tall bottle of water. Because I do not want to drink this caffeinated stuff.
All right, I saved the sleeping at night before the race for last, because if you heard that first, you would be like, "Oh, this is not exciting." So this is me sleeping in the back of my truck the night before the race, and I've just moved from my hammock because the hammock got a little bit cold. So I'm sitting there talking and trying to be quiet and not annoy people around me by talking about this thing. So that's why I'm kind of whispering and stuff. But I'm both nervous, excited, and tired all at the same time. So you can hear my excitement. But also I'm trying to catch some last minute sleep. Here we go. All right. It's like 2 a.m. and I'm sleeping in the back of my truck. I've alternated between my hammock and the back of my truck. Because one's slopey and curvy, and the back of the truck is flat. And I've eaten 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that I pre-made before I got here. And it's a partially moonlit night. We're in the pine forest, and there's cars camping all around me. I've got up twice to pee, but basically I'm carb and fat loading as we're going through the night. And I'm recording to my watch because I need to charge to my phone. I need to charge my phone or keep it charged for when we start off. So it's in the truck and not out here with me. And I am listening to music on my wireless headphones, which I'll charge again. They charge pretty fast. As I'm getting ready, my plan is to get up at 4:15 and start making breakfast. A little bit of coffee,
we roll out at 7. Because the weather is nice, this is really freaking cool. I taken a mosquito bite on my left finger, and that's been irritating. And it's a little bit colder than I thought it was going to be. But I've got a puffy jacket. Actually got 2 of them, but I'm wearing a puffy jacket and a beanie hat. And I did enjoy sleeping in the hammock, but now I'm back in the truck to do something different, go back to the truck. And I've got all my food locked away so animals can't get into it. And I thought there was more I was going to record. I guess this is it. So I'm going to try to get some more sleep. And yeah, I've got the tonneau cover like mostly closed to the legs of the truck. So it's kind of like a makeshift tent that's open on one end. And then to save my headlamps, I've got a cruddy flashlight tied around my neck so I can get to it. I know where it is if I need to grab it. I've been there's weird animal sounds, but mostly like dogs and roosters from like way far away on occasion. I think that's about it. So, good night.
And they put GPS trackers on you so that people can dot watch from a website from anywhere. And it turns out the race was on Friday, and it turns out the people at work got wind of it and were watching it at work. And thank God they were watching early on, because that's when I was really kicking ass. And so that was pretty funny, what I found out later. And yeah, I rode through the night, stopped to take a 20-minute nap in a ditch in the national forest. And that's, I don't know, part of the stuff that adventures are made out of. Ended up being just fine. Everything I was worried about happening didn't happen, and different things happened that I didn't expect. So we're going to go over that on today's show. So a little bit of history is that I attempted to do this race last year, and they have an even longer version. They have a 395-mile one, so over 100 miles longer. And my rear derailleur broke on mile 80 or 90. It got caught in a stick that there was a detour around a fallen tree, and a branch or something came up and went into my rear derailleur, sent my rear derailleur into my spokes, and almost entirely broke my rear derailleur. But I managed to get it stayed in one gear. And I used to ride single speed a long time ago, and there's a definite skill to it. And I rode single speed a lot, and I rode it over hilly terrains and all kinds of stuff. And so I was actually kind of enjoying riding single speed. But then the trick was, do not shift. If you shift, who knows what your rear derailleur is going to do. And out of reflex, one time I started climbing a hill and I shifted about 25 miles later. So I think I rode, it was between 15 and 25 miles single speed. And it's really hilly out there. But I was enjoying it. And the rear derailleur went into the rear wheel and sheared the derailleur in half, completely off the bike. It didn't break the derailleur hanger, it broke the derailleur. So my bike ended up in the shop for a couple months while they're trying to find the exact same rear derailleur, because it's kind of a rare one. And we built up my old single speed, and I rode single speed again for a while, and then raced single speed in gravel, the shorter stuff like 60 to 80 mile gravel races. And I even won a gravel race, single speed division. And that was a lot of fun. So this year I said, let's review the race and let's get some confidence back, scale it back to a little bit shorter version, which is still insane, 285 miles. And started looking at the race results and found out that the guy that won last year did it in 23 hours and change, maybe 24 hours. And he stopped, his Strava file was online. So I looked at his Strava file, and saw that he stopped for half an hour. A real stop was half an hour. And I was like, oh, okay. We've all done this thing where we've pulled an all-nighter. I've done it in high school and college and, partying or doing whatever, or studying. And then I even did it, 100-mile trail run race I did in 26 hours, which meant not stopping. So it's not something that I have never done. And I think a lot of us have actually done, is just, can you stay up until tomorrow morning and without falling asleep too much? And yeah, and then the weather started looking better and better, but I already signed up for it before we knew about the weather. So I signed up for it and started getting in my mind, okay, how do you ride 23 hours, let's say, because the average speed isn't that high. 12 miles an hour won the race last year, but that includes stopping and anytime you need to stop and pee, stop and move fuel around, get water, put on a jersey, do anything, put on gloves, take off gloves, getting too hot, getting too cold. Turns out, like going off course and needing to go back on course, any kind of thing like that, that all adds to it. And can I minimize those things and still average 12 miles an hour? And my training rides, riding by myself, usually average between, let's say, around 15 miles an hour. And I ride really long training rides, so 5 hours. And so I'm like, well, it is kind of going into the unknown here, and you have to drop the speeds down, but who knows, like, by how much. And my estimate was, if I average 15 miles per hour, 14 and a half, 15, no drafting, that if I'm in a group ride where you get to draft some or a lot, then if I just kept going, which is something that I'm good at, minimizing stop time, yeah, I could probably average 12 miles an hour, maybe, depending. And also putting aside, everything that can go wrong with your bike. So I was like, that is a barely attainable goal. That is something that it really caught my attention. So I was like, okay, that's the one I'm going to do. And out of the Showdown series, they have the biggest one is called the Showdown, the almost 400 miler. And then they have the Lowdown is the 285. And then they have, the Slowdown, I think. And then the Lowdown, and then the Shootout, and all kinds of stuff like that. So anyway, I believe the one I signed up for is called the Slowdown. And the two longest races are the only ones where they actually make sure that you stay on course and judge you and place you. The other races, there is no ranking of how fast you were versus anybody else. So if I'm going to put this effort into it, I want to see how I compare. And so that is how this was born. And then also, I've got a new frame, and my bike's been rebuilt by the Kai Blankner, who is also a bike mechanic now. And so I had a lot more faith in my bike, and my bike now has 50 millimeter tires front and rear, which really helps. Same drivetrain-ish, 11-speed rival, mechanical, pretty simple, which is what you want. And yeah, so that's how I got set up going into this race. And also in my mind, as the race got closer, I saw that the guy that won last year signed up, and I'm like, oh, so I'll just kind of like tail this guy and do what he does, and I'll probably do pretty well. And could even win, if I don't screw things up or, hit some kind of unknown. And yeah, that's how I found myself on the starting line of this thing. And with a whole lot of fear of like, how are we going to do this thing? It was really nice that I've at least attempted it before. And I knew what the beginning was like, and, like where to park. And it wasn't like a whole new world to me of how the race starts off, right? And how they organize everybody and line everybody up and how it gets going and such. So the race starts off by having people, the night before you pick up your packet, and but what's in it specifically is it's cool stuff, but is a GPS tracker. If you're doing the two longer distances, you have to have a GPS tracker. You can bring your own, or you can rent one from them. So I do the rental, and then that puts you on the map, and you need to put the GPS tracker in something that has decent exposure to the sky. So I put it in a saddlebag behind my stem. And then I spent the few weeks leading up to the race where I was positive I was going to do it, watching the weather and getting more and more excited. The weather was looking better and better and better. And also trying to rig up my bike with lights and battery power to make it through not only the 20 something hours it was going to take if everything went right. So we're talking a minimum of 23 hours, right? And then a maximum of probably 30 hours of, let's say stuff goes wrong, but I still can keep going. So there's that. And, so your cell phone and stuff, but then also, and your bike computer, but also you're going to be going through at least one night. So lights. And so I borrowed a light from Kai, which he has this light. We did night mountain bike racing one time. And he has this light that actually has a digital readout on the top of it that tells you how many hours are left on it. And then I bought a second smaller light, and I was going to rotate through these lights as needed. And if you do the math, add it all up, I should be fine, but barely. And that's all you need. You know how long night's going to last, right? So I was going to make it through the night portion of it. And I went out and test rode my bike on really rough stuff. Oh, and also put the luggage rack on and put some weight on it. So that, and I did a 3-hour ride, I think it was, on the roughest gravel around my house to see if everything stayed in place or if anything rattled off. And everything stayed in place. And what's really cool is I'm using an old luggage rack that my dad used to use when he was a bike commuter to work. And it's so old that it actually doesn't fit modern bikes. I had to stretch the legs of it apart a little bit, and it mounts in 4 points. So it's really sturdy once you get it mounted. And it has 3 legs on each side that go from just above the axle, the mounting point, up to the platform. And so I took duct tape and wrapped it around that to make it more aero, so I didn't have 3 big cylinders on each side, cutting vertically through the wind, which is aerodynamically really bad. So it actually looked pretty cool. And it's aluminum, so it's pretty light. And then from last year, I had both some old battery. I bought battery banks last year, so I still have some battery banks, and that way you can charge your bike computer, charge your phone, charge your lights if you need to. And I had bought last year, it's a Trek Bontrager rear rack bag, and one of the hidden weapons of my race, because I got 2 that were pretty interesting, was that, actually I got 3, is that my bag on the back opens from the top, right? And so there's 2 ways to carry stuff behind you on the bike. One is a roll that you tie to your seat post and to your saddle rails. But then that's real bouncy and swings sometimes. It's kind of loose, depends how much stuff you put in there. And it looks kind of like a big turd coming out of the back of the bike, where the saddle is. And if you want to get stuff out of there, then you have to I don't know how you would do it. You pull stuff out. You have to pull a lot of stuff out and then put stuff back in. And I do a lot of backpacking, and I know that gear is only as good as is it easy to find it. So if you can't find it, or it's a pain in the ass to find it, you're inclined not to use it. And so this one bag that I got, when I saw it for sale, I was like, oh, this is interesting. It is more like a grocery sack, and you open it from the top. And when you open it from the top, you can look straight down in it, and it secures with Velcro and stuff to the luggage rack. And you look down in it, and then in it, you can see the stuff, because the lining is light colored. It's like a light silver. And so that helps you see in there. And then it's got 2 zippered pockets on the side, so you can grab stuff out of the side pockets as well. And I'm actually really excited to use this thing for real. Oh, and by now I'm not totally inexperienced with bike packing. I've done 320 miles with Kai in this exact same area. And this is East Texas, Bigfoot country is what we like to call it out there. And the pine curtain behind the old days of the Soviet Union, it was called the Iron Curtain. And so you're behind the pine curtain because it gets really weird in those pine forests. And there's a definite break from not pine forest to these pine forests, and the whole type of culture and people and lifestyle living in these national forests is pretty cool and mysterious and like backwoods. Yeah. Like I said, Bigfoot country, you wouldn't know, except it's not mountainous enough, but it can get really hilly, whether you're in East Texas or in Oregon or in East Tennessee, up Virginia, West Virginia, up in the mountains, Kentucky or something like that. It is thick pine forest. And the other thing about national forests is that you can stop and camp anywhere in the national forest. It's encouraged to camp at an actual campsite, but the whole national forest is open for you to actually stop. So if you need to stop and sleep in the middle of the night or the middle of the day, whatever you're doing, if you happen to be in the national forest at that moment, because you go in and out of it a lot as you're riding this thing, then it's totally fine, which is neat because it gives you the ability to stop and regroup kind of like anywhere you're at, not just gas stations, grocery stores or something. But yeah, I've done 320 miles through this exact same area with Kai, but we stayed one night in a hotel in Crockett, Texas, and one night at his girlfriend's house in Huntsville, Texas. But then you pack up in the morning, get going again, and that was for 320. And then last fall, we rode the most off-roady portion of the Central Texas Showdown route. And that was 180 miles. So we did 100 miles one day and 80 miles the next through the Texas Hill Country around Enchanted Rock and like all this other stuff. And that one, we camped overnight on an island in the Llano River, which was so freaking cool. And I fixed a broken spoke along the way. And yeah, I slept in the back of the truck, and Kai pitched a tent and slept there, and we're underneath a cliff face on the Llano River. And oh my gosh, it's so rad. And so I'm not totally inexperienced with bike packing at this point, but I'm very inexperienced with running things off of battery packs as a necessity. Because if you're just riding through the day and then you're camping at night, usually you make it through the day and then recharge stuff at night at wherever you're staying. And the other thing is riding through the night under the power of headlights. I'm new to that, doing that like through the entire night. So one of my secret weapons was the luggage rack on the back having this open top where I could just reach in and grab whatever I want after I lean my bike against a fence post or something like that. I don't have to pull everything out and then shove it back in. And so in that, what I did so that I didn't have to stop is I went ahead and made fuel for 24 hours plus. And I did maltodextrin powder and maple syrup combined into a thick paste and put that into 20-ounce Coke bottles. And it took 3 of those to have the first 6 hours of fuel I already had on my bike. And then each additional one of the 3 was another 6 hours. So that adds up to 24 hours. I had that in the back luggage rack. It's nice and heavy. The 20-ounce Coke bottles are tough, so they're most likely not going to break open. And then I could just squeeze the stuff out into bike bottles as I needed it. Then I had my second secret weapon was I had from previous racing, marathon mountain bike racing, I have a strap-on bottle cage holder. And so you can buy these things and they're rubberized and have straps, and you can strap a bottle cage mount to your bike anywhere that you want it. And they work really well, and you can double down on it by adding zip ties to it to make sure it really stays in place. And I wanted to go 90 miles without stopping to get water and to do that, I needed this extra water carrying capacity. So I had water, but on my aero bars, I had water, fuel on both down cages on my seat tube, down tube, and hydration pack with 2 liters of water. And then I do have a bottle cage under the down tube, but I decided that's hard to get to while you're riding. And I decided that I wanted to use that instead for holding tools, because since it's hard to get to, that means I'm not going to get to it unless I'm getting off the bike. Well, if I'm getting off the bike, well, that means there's a repair probably going on or something like that. And that's a great place to hold tools. And now for a quick tire repair, like say I get a puncture and I need to plug it, in my top bag, I had tire puncture plugs on. I have the real quick one, the darts made by, who makes those? But anyway, I had that, and I had CO2 and the CO2 head, like right where I could get to it, right bare. I could probably work on my front tire without even getting off the bike. And so that's for quick repairs. And then also in the top tube and in pockets and side pockets and stuff, I had gummy worms, Cliff Bars, and in my frame bag, I think I had a battery bank or two. And then in my backpack on my back, I had the 2-liter water bag and some extra clothes. The weather was going to be real mild and moderate, so I didn't need to pack a ton of extra clothes. I had an emergency bivy bag, which is kind of like an emergency blanket, but it's like mummy bag shaped, so you can get all the way in it. And oddly, I bought that one as camouflage colored because if I'm in that, I don't want people to see me because I want to sleep and not be bothered by hunters or like landowners. What are you doing? So I'd just rather not be discovered, because you can buy them in like bright orange. And then scattered about, I had like extra set of gloves, extra jersey to add on for warmth, and a beanie hat to add on for warmth. And I started off the race wearing, because it was just cold enough, I think, wearing 2 cycling jerseys, and I can unzip one and do it. And I had on 2 layers of arm coolers, which acts as arm warmers at that point. And you can go from arm warmers to just arm coolers to protect your forearms from the sun by just stripping off one of them and then shoving them in a pocket while you're riding, which is pretty neat. And I had around my neck a stretchy scarf, and that you can take off because I tied it in a square knot. Instead of it being a sock like a real buff, I didn't have to take off my helmet and my glasses and all that stuff to get the thing to come off. I could just untie it and then it would come off. And because all this is about speed at first and ease of transition between stuff. And back to the secret weapon was to carry additional water in an easy accessible place. I figured out something that I've been wanting to kind of test for a long time is in triathlon, you have heavy use of aero bottles. So bottles that are flat, right? Not round. And I have an aero bottle mount, and so like a cage holder and a flat aero bottle. I got 2 of them actually. And I mounted it on the top tube of my bike back up against my seat post on the top side of the top tube. So it fills the space under the nose of my saddle back to my seat post, and it's thin, right? Because otherwise, I tried at first using a round bottle, and then it lays flat on its side facing forward. So like in line with the bike. So if I did that, my legs rubbed the bottle if it was a round bottle. But if it was the flat bottle, then my legs didn't rub it. And so you can see pictures of this on Instagram, and it worked. And turns out it's super handy to grab. You just reach down between your legs, ease the seat back. No, that's an old Van Halen song. But it's like between your thighs, kind of. And super easy to grab. And then that was trick number 2. And I think I'm going to keep that there. I think it's really freaking smart place to carry water. And then, oh, it does look kind of funny. So it would be, I'll probably just keep the cage there. And then if I ever do something like really long, I just use that bottle for that. I can carry extra water like right there. And then the other big secret trick I do for a lot of these kinds of races is I put painter's tape somewhere on my handlebar setup, and on it, so painter's tape is blue tape that doesn't leave residue when you peel it off. And then with permanent marker, you can write on the painter's tape certain stuff. So I think on the left side, I put the mileage of where different stops where there's potential food and water are. And then on the right side, and I put these on the arrow bars so that they're vertically out in front of me, right? So I can read them from top to bottom. If I'm doing mountain bike racing, then they go sideways, across the top of the handlebars. But on the right side was where the biggest hills were, and at what mileage point the race starts is the highest point of the race, and everything's downhill from there. At the biggest climbs, and where's the last climb? Because psychologically, it's a really smart trick to save yourself for the worst last climb. And if you do that, you'll actually end up almost negative splitting, because you're like saving yourself for the very worst part towards the end. And if you do that, then you'll actually have your fastest race result. And so I had all that. So I guess that would be my third secret weapon. So the race starts off, and I'm still going into the unknown though. Like, how am I going to charge my phone while I'm riding? And I have a trick for that. I'll tell you in a minute that worked. But how am I going to do this? And but it was so nice having half done it before, or even more so, because like more than half the battle is showing up and getting going, right? And I'd done that the year before, and then this year the weather's going to be fantastic. So we gather up in the morning, and towards the end of the show, I'm going to tell you about the camping situation and how that works at this race. So you can do that if you ever come to this race. But we line up, everybody rolls out at first together, and it's a 6-mile rollout, which looking back is really nice because I have asthma really bad. And for 6 miles of easy pedaling is great for not shocking your system with pollen and stuff like that, and you can slowly adapt. And it turned out to be wonderful for me because I had no asthma symptoms the entire race. And another goal of mine was I was wanting enough battery power for my phone, and figure out how to do that so that I could listen to music when I wanted to, especially when I'm by myself or things get hard in the middle of the night out in the forest or towards the end of the race. It's really nice to have music, and that's allowed during the race, and I strongly encourage it, or podcasts, whatever you want to listen to. And I learned this, how important it was, because my first night out testing better lights for this kind of thing, I was out on gravel roads. I just left my house and went out biking, but a storm front was approaching. So there's lightning on the horizon, and it's coming, right? And I have this very small window to go ride, and my stuff isn't totally waterproofed yet. So I was getting freaked out. I had like anxiety and, all kinds of stuff. What do I get stranded out here in the dumping rain, and it's dark. It's beyond dark, and then I'm testing out lights, and I had this feeling of just like, nah, I'm not having fun. This is not fun, right? And then I had my phone with me and my headphones, and I put it on like chill hop, lo-fi, just like relaxed, kind of cool hip hop music with no lyrics, just kind of listening. And it calmed me down like so well. It was wonderful. And I was like, I went from being like, oh my gosh, if I get stuck out of here, all my equipment's going to get fried, to, yeah, I might get stuck out here. If my equipment gets fried, it'd probably be fine, buy something else, I guess, if I have to, to replace this, that, and the other. My stuff's old, so, if something gets fried, then I'll replace it. And that's not the worst thing. It was bizarre, like how fast it changed my mood. So I realized that this is I wouldn't call it a secret weapon, but it's like a nice thing to know, that you can get rid of a lot of your fear by surrounding yourself with something that's kind of familiar. So it's like your security blanket. And so I wanted to make sure that happened. So anyway, the race goes 6 miles on purpose, specifically because there is a long bridge to get over Lake Livingston. And it's 2 lanes with no shoulder. It's kind of an older bridge. It's a nice bridge, but it's an older bridge. And 2 lanes. It doesn't get a lot of traffic, but it does get traffic. And to get 300, 400 people over this bridge without incident is precarious. And so you have a police escort, and then the truck out front taking photos and stuff like that. So it's a party pace ride over this bridge. And last year I was kind of annoyed by it. And even this year I was kind of annoyed by it. Like, I wish it could just get going. But now looking back, for me and my asthma, it's wonderful. It was perfect. It allowed me to warm up very gently and get breathing and stuff like that. There's a type of asthma where it's the shock to the system of cold air or pollen too fast that your body overreacts to it. And then you have you struggle breathing for the next couple of days. And we get over the bridge, and then they wait for everybody to catch up because there's still, a little bit of lagging. Oh, and they wait for all the cars that we have backed up behind us to go past. That's the other thing. And they say, okay, go, and then it took off. And so that was wild. I found myself in the front group because this is such a long race. People aren't going that fast. And if you're drafting and stuff, so it's kind of easy-ish if you're a decent cyclist. And I would put myself in the category of a decent cyclist. I'm not exceptional or anything, but I'm a decent cyclist. And the front group is kind of rotating in and out. And this is where I made a mistake in that I noticed where the guy was. I knew he was in the race again. He was on the start list, and I identified him, and I'm kind of watching him. But the front group would split on occasion just because of the natural terrain of like gentle hills. And this is mostly on pavement. And I think that I was so focused on, I lost focus on staying with a guy that I wanted to follow and make sure I stayed with for as long as I could, that I was like, well, I don't want to let that lead group get away, right? And so on occasion, let's say like it's 3 times, I would close the gap between our group and the lead group. And also I wanted, looking back, like, why didn't I do that? And I think, I don't want to admit it, but like there was a part of me that wanted to show that other guy who did not know me from Adam. And so it was like, but like, who is this guy? Say I'm him. And then he's like, who is this guy? And then like, oh, whoa, this guy's a real contender. I want to put a little bit of fear into this guy, because if I can control the situation and put a little bit of fear into him, maybe I can make him make a mistake and make him do something, make him blow up, right? And this is all, tactics, let's say. But you never know, how things are going to play out until afterwards, and then you can act like you're all smart. If it worked out in your way, then you're like, yeah, it totally did what I wanted. But it's actually pretty random. So I closed the gap a few times, which burning some matches, and then the group just kept accelerating, and that was fine, except I was like, yeah, a couple of times I found myself ahead of the guy that I wanted to keep my eye on. And see, that's not necessary. And I was wasting energy doing that, because I found, this is something that I learned, if it's easy, mild terrain, if the front pack breaks apart, somebody's going to bring the pack back together. And it doesn't need to be you, right? Now, if the pack breaks apart, and you want to stay with the pack as long as you can because you're going way faster because of the drafting effect. We averaged 19 miles an hour up through mile 31 when this pack broke apart, right? Well, the pack broke into like 3 different packs and then back to 2 and then back to 1. 3 different pack, 1 to 3 to 2 to 1, right? And it was just because of this natural rolling terrain that wasn't technical yet. Now, if the pack breaks apart because of a technical terrain, like a really hard turn that is loose and got ruts, and some people struggle and maybe crash out or something like that, or like a really steep climb out of nowhere, then you want to work harder probably than normal to try to get back on the group in front of you, because that group is going to use that to really break the pack apart. And that happened at mile 30, but by then I'd wasted energy bringing the pack back together. I would bridge the gap and then find that there was people behind me. Well, I shouldn't have done that. I should have let somebody else do that, right? Well, at mile 30, we go through the town of Groveton. Oh, wait, let me back up just a little bit. The first 30 miles had gravel, but not complicated gravel. And it was so cool. Let's say it was like 50% gravel. Riding in the front pack, rotating in and out, and you get what you see in the online videos of what gravel racing is really like in the front pack. And it is madness. It is so rad. There's rocks flying everywhere, because as you roll over a rock, and if you catch a rock with your tire, like the side of the rock, then it'll shoot the rock sideways into somebody else's bike's wheels, and those wheels will throw the rock up in the air. So every once in a while you're catching a rock in the face, even in your teeth, and you're hearing the rocks pinging and banging around. Like one rock will bang off 3 bikes and 2 helmets, and it's just constantly going on. And you can't see in front of you because of the group. So you don't know what's coming up. And this is where, if you're racing at the front, you want bigger tires, because you don't know what you're about to hit, because you can't pick a line. Now, let's say you're mountain biking or you're riding by yourself on gravel. You see some rough stuff coming up, right? Well, you can pick the smoothest line through that. Well, when it's racing and you're at the front, you can't. You cannot see what's coming, so you will get a flat tire if you don't have strong enough tires. And then the bigger, like barely heavier tires or whatever, the sacrifice of those slowing you down is made up for the fact that you're in a pack and you're drafting. So it all works out. And I have to say, it was like so exciting for like an hour or something. Basically the equivalent of the first entire half of a normal gravel race, riding in the front pack. And I'm not the best rider in that group, so admittedly I'm towards the back of the pack, but nothing really bad has happened yet. And these courses aren't, this race course is not technical, except for one thing. But there is a thing where it's like, it'll go from like gravel road to like double track. And then you decide you want to jump over to the other track, right? And that's a place that a lot of people will get flats. So you got to be careful, doing that. That would be a little bit technical right there, in a way, because that middle strip of grass can be hiding like real sharp rocks and stuff. And we go through Groveton and then take a right. And Groveton is just an intersection, And we take a right and some houses, and we take a right, and we start going down this gravel road again. We go from pavement to gravel again. And it's the exact same thing as it has been for a while. It's a pack. I'm towards the back of the pack, just riding this draft effect. And but I'm starting to get kind of tired because I've closed the gap unnecessarily a few times. And then I hear somebody at the front yell, "Sand!" I was like, oh shit. And then I see people flying in my mind's eye. I don't know if it's true or not, because the fish is always bigger in the story than in reality that you caught. And so it's like people were like crashing. There was definitely people crashing. I don't remember if they were cartwheeling, but there was like people crashing. And let's say there's like 15 of us, right? And then I managed to not crash, but I do have to stop and put a foot down. A woman in front of me wiped out big time. And so the East Texas pine forest is mostly good, except there are small patches or long stretches of super deep sand if it hasn't rained for a while, like ridiculously deep sand. And it's not bad. It's not worth not doing the race about. It's just a thing to know. And what makes it bad is if you're riding behind other people and you don't see it coming. And then the next thing you know, you're bearing down on your front wheel, and then your front wheel digs in. And because the way to ride through deep sand is, if it's possible, the only way it's possible is to ride on your rear tire and let your front wheel float over the sand, and that way you can still steer. Because if you put your weight evenly on your bike or towards the front of your bike, then your front wheel digs in, and any turn that isn't straight, any twist of the steering at all is going to dig it in even further and act like a mass. It's like putting on your front brake and you're going to flip or crash sideways. And that's what was happening all of a sudden. So that caused this huge chaos breakup. Sand, all this stuff. And if I was at the front, and I'm projecting that the people at the very, very, very front knew it was coming and made sure that they were in the front. They knew about this, and that this is what they call a selector. This is where things that break the pack apart for real. And I wouldn't have said anything. I would have been like on my back tire and riding with weight off the front and just trying to plow through it and let it be a surprise to everybody behind me that didn't see it coming. And then that breaks the pack apart, right? And and that's what happened. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I've been overreaching for a little bit. I'm going to let this pack go. And the race completely changed character for me after that. We were riding, twos and threes after that. The people that made it through the sand, and then I could have re-accelerated and tried like hell to catch that front pack, but I figured I'd done enough of that and just kind of let them go. And then just started riding on my own in twos and threes. Another thing is really cool is that Megan Mackinnon is a world-class ultra distance cyclist, and she was in the race. And while we're riding in a big group together, I managed to talk to her a little bit, and she won the Continental Divide, the Great Divide race, where you ride off-road from Canada through the Rocky Mountains all the way down to Mexico. So it takes like 3 weeks. She won that. She placed or won in the Atlas Mountain races. That's in Africa. And then she finished 10th overall in the Silk Road race, which is totally self-supported, high altitudes in the mountains of Kazakhstan. And so I was like, holy crap, you're Megan Mackinnon. She's like, hi. And I'm like, wow, it's so cool to be right next to you. This is really neat. And I'm in podcaster mode at this moment. And why I became a podcaster is to meet and be inspired by like awesome people and learn from them. And she's just a chill person, just riding. And she's not like crazy skinny or like super muscular looking or, like otherworldly action figure. She's like a normal person just riding. And it really dawns on you that this stuff is like, just when it goes really long distance, it's about being smart. You need to be 50% in shape and 50% really smart and capable and not afraid and experienced. And a lot of faith in that things are probably going to work out all right, which is usually true. So that was really cool because it gives you inspiration that, hey, you could be really great at this too, just with some experience and, targeted training and, getting the right gear over time to do this kind of thing. And so anyway, riding along next to her, and then things are going along good. And my goal now is to make it to mile 90. Waiches is the name of this town. It's funny, there's a Natchez and then there's a Waiches, Wecches. And Waiches is where I had to change course last year because my bike was broken. And that's at mile 90, because at mile 80 is where my bike got the stick in the derailleur. So I'm going through the forest, and I can't remember, I wanted to mention on my bike computer, I altered what it said so that I didn't try to chase numbers too much. Because at some point you should just go by how things feel, right? And not try to chase numbers, because that'll get you in trouble. And so me trying to chase this front pack and stay with them is what got me in trouble. What you're actually supposed to do that works better in gravel racing, because it is draft legal, is you start off with the big pack, and then eventually the big pack splits off, and then you let the front of the front go. Unless you're like, capable of winning the thing. You let the front go, and then you ride with a more appropriate pack now. That's like the second pack. And then eventually something will happen, and that second pack will break up into two pieces. And then you ride with the third pack. And then eventually you're in a group of people that's about your speed that has broken off, and then you finish out the race with them, and that's the fastest way to finish. And that way you're drafting and you're not overreaching, right? So that's what you're supposed to do. And anyway, I get to the point where mile 80, I can tell exactly this is where my bike derailleur broke. There's the remnants of tree that had fallen, and that's why we had to take this little detour last year through this improvised trail that had sticks and all kinds of stuff all over it that weren't beaten down yet, and branches that were like sticking out into the trail around this tree that had fallen down. Well, now the tree is sawed up into pieces. The road's fine now, and I can see remnants of a little trail around me. And then I'm like, this is where it happened last year, and it's right at mile 80. And then get to mile 90, and I assumed at mile 90 there's this little church, and then there's a bigger church, and then there's a volunteer fire department. And the little church is, there's a water spigot, but it's got a hose connected to it last year. So I rode past it and towards the bigger church, and I rode a loop around the bigger church looking for a water spigot, no water spigot. And I'm like, that's weird. Usually churches have like a water spigot somewhere where you can see it. And then I rode over to this volunteer fire department, same thing. I opened up a spigot, and then it ran for like 2 seconds, and then nothing. So there's probably a way to make it run longer, but I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, so I'm wasting time this entire time. And so I go back to this little church that has this hose hookup that's just to water some bushes. And then I refill my water there. Because remember, I got 90 miles with no water, and with no water refill. And then I was like, okay, boy, that was risky. Because what if that thing wasn't there anymore, And the next thing is I got back up on my bike and started pedaling, and then that's when things started getting hilly. And I'll be right back. Hold on. Gotta take a bathroom break. All right, we are back, and we are on the road. I'm leaving Kingwood, where my parents live, to go back to College Station. So I'm leaving the East Texas pine forest and swamps, which is very much like where we started at Point Blank, Texas, near Lake Livingston. It's probably about 30 minutes from here. And driving back to the prairies of College Station here on Easter morning, help my mom around the house doing stuff and doing IT support for elderly people, which is like the easiest IT support ever. You just gotta be patient. But anyway, forgot to mention, one of the coolest things about doing yet a different long distance sport is you get to learn a whole new sport. And you're like, well, it's biking. How different can it be? Well, it's so cool if you have the right mindset, right? There's the two different mindsets of if you don't know something, then you get mad that you don't know something, and other people know things and I don't. And then there's the mindset of when you get proven that you're wrong or you don't know something, you're like, oh, cool, something else to learn. That's how I actually got such a positive attitude about Ironman, is when I sucked at triathlon so bad at first. I was like, this isn't right. I'm athletic. I should be good at this. Why am I so bad at this? And then I thought, oh, cool, I got a project. Got something to figure out. And because as you figure out stuff, you get smarter, right? And it feels good to get smarter. It's a difference of enjoying being smarter or enjoying being right. Which one, And if you enjoy getting smarter, then you get to be right more often. That way you get to win both times. So anyway, there is these nuances to long distance cycling that are counterintuitive, or you do the opposite of other sports. Just like you train differently for long distance swimming versus short distance swimming. You train differently for swimming than you do for biking because different things matter, right? You train differently for biking than you do for running because biking and swimming, you're basically suspended. It's almost zero gravity, right? So you can do different things because you have much less impact, where running is an impact sport. And so you have to do things differently in the amount of time you can train. It's all different, right? So long distance biking has differences to it, especially long distance off-road biking has differences to it, where other things start to matter more than the things that matter more in the shorter distance stuff. And now you have to, there's sliding scales, which one's more important, being aero or being comfortable? Because in really long distance stuff, being comfortable will end up buying you speed, because if you're comfortable, you get less fatigued. And if you get fatigued, then you're stopping more often, or you're having to ride slower because you can't control the bike as well, or you're sitting up and shaking out your hands and arms because they're fatiguing. Where if you have comfort, you can keep going. And comfort will slow you down a little bit than all out raw speed, but it'll make you more durable and sustainable for long distance. So yesterday when I was driving in this horrible rainstorm on the way down here, I'm driving in a vehicle that can tolerate this horrible rainstorm way better. I'm in a pickup truck with the 4-door cab, so it's got a long wheelbase, so it's real stable. It drives like a limousine, and because it's a truck, it's up higher, I can see better. And because there was flooded spots, I'm in a truck, you're higher up off the ground, you got more mass, so that when things get rough, you don't get bounced around as much. It just smooths everything out. And then there's basically the geometry and the weight and the balance of things. And then there's the touch points. It's more comfortable because they've put in better padded seating, so it's like a nicer vehicle. So it's more comfortable, and then it's got better safety stuff. It's got navigation, and it's got automatic cruise control built in, right? So the next thing you know, I went from a vehicle that had none of that stuff to having this stuff, and long driving trips all of a sudden became quite pleasurable. And also, I guess another technology thing is I can play music that I want right through the stereo system from my phone, instead of having to plug things in weird and stuff like that, right? So you take this over to, so I can go longer without needing to stop. And when I finally do stop, I'm nowhere near as tired as when I used to drive my old car, because I don't have to focus as hard as much. The vehicle and the technology is taking care of some things itself, so that I don't have to think about them, right? So this long distance stuff, right off the bat, the very first two things are front suspension and bigger tires, obviously, but aero bars. So what aero bars in long distance stuff, a lot of times they're called comfort bars. And what it does is if you can put your weight on your elbows because you're bent over and resting your upper body on your elbows, that takes the weight off your hands and your hands can recover. So right from the beginning, you want to be in your aero bars as often as possible. You don't want to wait. All these things, you don't want to wait until it hurts, then start doing the solution, right? Then it's kind of like the whole theory behind dehydration. If you're already thirsty, it's too late. So you want to get in the habit of doing this stuff right from the beginning. And front suspension is the same thing. It's rough enough that some suspension, and if you're going to put it anywhere, you put it in the front. And the whole thing goes back to, if you have a mountain bike, right, and it's totally rigid, no suspension whatsoever, where's the first place you put suspension? You put it on the front. You don't put it on the rear. So whenever I see a bike that has rear, they put a suspension seat post on it, but the front's still rigid, I'm like, dude, you're not doing it right. You put it on the front first, because also the front is where the steering is, and it's where your hands contact point that you're leaning on, and their hands are kind of fragile compared to your butt. And you can get a padded seat and padded bike shorts and add quote unquote suspension quite easily, just naturally by doing that. But the front is where, and the bumpier the front is, the front jolts the whole bike, where if it hits the back, if the back's rigid, well, you're already over the obstacle a little bit, and it bumps you some, but not like impacting things with the front. So gravel has this conundrum where you don't really want to do suspension forks if you don't have to. That's like your last resort. They definitely work. My single speed has a suspension fork on it, and it's wonderful, but these things take, you want this stuff to be simple to go long distance, right? So suspension forks fail, they have maintenance, all this kind of stuff. You're like, well, they do it in mountain biking. Yeah, but in mountain biking, you don't go anywhere near the amount of distance and time that you actually do on road bikes and gravel biking. So, when they have so many hours service interval, mountain biking, that's a whole lot easier to stick to than road biking. And then when you do a gravel bike suspension fork, it's like 20 millimeters. I mean, it's like the amount of suspension is tiny, right? So anyway, one of the common solutions is a suspension stem, and that takes the shock and vibration out of the handlebars, and then your hands take a lot less abuse, your upper body takes a lot less abuse, and it ends up being, really nice. And there's a bunch of different brands, and I might switch from doing a redshift to doing a parallelogram style suspension stem, because that's even better. And that's just to not do a suspension fork, because the only kind of suspension fork that I would invest my money in is one that requires almost no maintenance, and there's only one that's really good, and that is the Lauf fork, and that is $900 to $1,000 new, and for something that's actually pretty simple. It's kind of frustrating. It's just got carbon or fiberglass leaf springs in it. That's it. And it's almost no moving parts in a weird way. So why does it cost so much money, right? And then wait till that patent runs out. And the next one is that it on suspension forks? Yeah, I think that's, buy a used one for like $500 freaking dollars. But then you got no warranty, like what if the steer is messed up or something like that? What has the person done to it? So it's like, what? And then you can't turn it off, because there's times where you don't want suspension. If you want to accelerate, or it's smooth pavement, you do not need suspension. And it's wasted effort, actually, to have suspension you can't turn off when you don't need it, because the bike pogos a little bit. So suspension stems are nice because it keeps the bike rigid for when it needs to be rigid on pavement. A lot of it depends on what kind of terrain you ride, okay? So the races that I do mostly are 50-50, and the riding I do is 50-50. So suspension stem, it does a nice job. And yeah, so Redshift makes the industry standard nice suspension stem, but it's got a flaw in the design where it pivots weird, and you can buy a different one. There's two other ones, and I forgot the names, whatever. So, but there's another trick you can do, is any kind of cushioning on your handlebars is suspension. So a trick is on the aero bar pads, you can buy aftermarket aero bar pads that are thick, like big, thick, soft flip-flops, flip-flops that have thick padding on them. Well, they make replacement, and I would call them upgrade, elbow bar pads than the one that comes stock. And they're almost 2 centimeters thick of this stuff. So when you're in the aero bars, riding these things on your elbows, you get almost 2 centimeters of suspension, which is what you're paying in all this money in a suspension fork for, right? Of course, it's better in a suspension fork, but still, it's like 1.7 or 1.8, I don't know, something centimeters of padding in this thing. No moving parts, and $30 or something, I don't know, whatever they cost. And you take off the old pads and put on the new ones. And then you can be in the aero position or comfort position and having front suspension on your bike. And then, so I did this entire race and my hands never hurt. Think about that. That's pretty crazy. And because my neck hurt, and that was new. I haven't had that happen in a long freaking time. And the other thing that's a cool little trick is the grips out at the end. A lot of people have nothing on the ends of the aero bars. They're just straight metal or poly, what do you call it? I'm about to say polyester, fiberglass, right? Or just, handlebar grip that they've added, the handlebar tape. No, buy aftermarket grips that are silicone and plush that people put on mountain bikes, and put those on the end of it. And it allows you to hold on to the ends with your hands, and they're vibration dampening. They're awesome. What is that? What kind of sound was that? I'm driving in Houston traffic. It's the outskirts, but it's still pretty freaking terrible. The thing about Houston traffic, and I think a lot of big city traffic, is it's just random. It's like normal person, psycho, normal person, ladder in the road, normal person, somebody pulling a gun out and waving it, it's just like, dude, what the hell? Like, everybody, normal person, somebody driving 500 miles an hour, it's just like, what the hell, man? Like, humans just love consistency and reliability, or else you just can't plan on anything. So that's why it's stressful in driving in places like Houston, where, Family Dollar, Mexican restaurant, pharmacy, fireworks. This, I'm just reading off, what's it? Tire shop with the wheels basically almost out in the street, abandoned building, O'Reilly Auto Parts, gas station. So dude just cut me off in a Dodge Charger just right now, and that's all like hot rodded out, even though I can tell it's the 4-banger and not the V8. Lifted truck, flooded. It's flooded right across the other intersection. We're gonna have to go through some water, and then a Boost Mobile. Okay. It's like, dude. Anyway, I'm venting about Houston. I'm so glad I don't live here anymore. And I feel for everybody that does. I'm not ragging on you. Once I got out, I was like, I'm gonna do everything I can. I'm not saying that it won't ever happen, because a lot of times you just have to take the job that you have to take to pay the bills. But if I can help it, I'm never moving back to big city. After learning about biking in the countryside and stuff, I'm gonna do everything I can. It's that good to bike out in the countryside. And I get a dose of the city, coming back to visit my parents' house on occasion. So. Okay, anyway, so my aero bar position is like super, super comfy, and it almost has like suspension built in. Now the downside is my aero position is set up kind of aggressively for short distance racing and also relatively shorter distance workouts. I mean, everything's shorter than 285 miles. So I haven't experienced neck pain or strain 20 years, I don't know, something. But I wasn't, I knew that could happen because I was going farther and longer, but I was like, it probably won't happen because on gravel, you spend a lot of time sitting up. You spend a lot of time looking around. There's no point in being in aero position all the time. You can draft, right? You're climbing a hill, so you're sitting up. So yeah, it'll probably be all right. No, it was not. I started developing neck pain going into nighttime. So just kind of like, we started at 7 a.m., by the way. So when you go past your normal stuff that you're used to doing, then that's when new problems, arise. And I thought about how funny it was that it was right on cue that I'm riding along and all of a sudden my neck starts hurting, and I go, oh yeah, well, I've gone beyond my normal training ride. And so, yeah, okay, this makes sense. My neck's starting to hurt. And it is painful. So it never became crippling or something I had to really stop for. And the cure is, even when you're sitting up, dangle your head down. Like, relax your neck. Don't lift your head up and look forward. And when you can, when you're in the aero position, dangle your head down and stretch your neck out. Don't spend too much time looking up and forward. And then another trick is, you don't have to lift your head very far up to look forward. You can actually use your eyes to look forward and keep your head kind of down so that you remain aero. And a lot of people forget about that's an option. And it's something you can get good at. And also, when you're making gear choices, your sunglasses and your helmet can influence how far up you can look with your eyes and leave your head down to relax your neck. By how the frame shape of your glasses and then how far your helmet comes down. And there's a reason why you see these sunglasses that have no frame on the top, right? Because you can't see through the frame. You can see through the lenses, and then the lenses just stop, and then there's no frame on top. They're kind of interesting. So anyway, work on that. I would do neck strengthening exercises leading up to the next race. Like neck lifts against some kind of resistance. And that would be a smart thing to do. Leading up to the race, a few weeks out, I started doing more push-ups to strengthen my triceps and my arms and my shoulders. And I think that helped a lot. But the thing in my neck eventually got to me. When I was done with the race, my neck had been hurting and stuff like that. I didn't think much of it. And when the race was over, I went and laid down in a hammock or in the bed of my truck or something like that. I don't know how long, a few hours, took a nap, and woke up, and my top of my shoulder, my trap, the muscle that's behind my neck and at the top of my shoulder on the right side, the skin was numb, and I had a sharp pain. Not debilitating, just annoying. And it took quite a few days for it to go away. And then actually the pain came back a little bit when I was riding again with Gary just the other day. And I thought, that's interesting. So, and I have a particular type of neuropathy. Neuropathy is where you get nerve damage. I have neuropathy that manifests. There's all different kinds of neuropathy. Peripheral neuropathy is where it's the tips of your fingers and feet first, and it's the ends of things. The nerves start getting damaged over time. And mine manifests from, it's a very particular kind, from pressure. So I easily get nerve damage or numbness from things, just gentle to medium pressure for any amount of time will make my nerves go numb. And in most people, it takes way more than that for your nerves to go numb. But mine is pretty quick. And it's a genetic thing that runs in my family. My mom and my granddad had it, but not in the exact way that I have it. And all these things are combinations of genes. Mine's a pressure sensitive created, and theirs is a chemical and something else. So I got to be careful with how long I apply. If I wear socks that are just the tiniest bit too tight, my feet go numb by the middle of the day. Where most people would be like, "Oh, socks are tight, it's annoying." You know, my feet go numb for like 3 days. You know, so a little bit of pressure on my back in a weird way sent my these nerves numb on my, and then also my skin will go numb on my feet or on my back or something like that. So we're all fighting our different demons, and there's worse than that. So I don't really, you don't hear me complain about it too much. Then, yeah, did I mention the race got kind of hilly, and then I'm climbing up this hill towards the end, towards the middle. And somebody asked me on Instagram or Twitter, they said, with all the numbers and stuff on my handlebars, they said, why don't you just plug the course into your bike computer? And it's like, plugging the course into your bike computer does not tell you what time the gas station closes. And it doesn't tell you to definitely do not go right because everybody else is going right at this mile point. You have to go left because you fall into this race brain and you just start like a drone following other people. Everybody else did it, so you do it, right? And the next thing you know, you've gone off course, which has happened to me. And that's why it's smart to do things like that. Yeah, you could put in things like cutoff times. You know, this stuff is not going to be in your bike computer. So anyway, I'm not sure if I mentioned it yet. You know, I was talking about my bike gearing, and I'm riding, and my bike is geared for prairie and not for steep hills. And I'm bitching out loud, God dang, my bike gearing. I forgot, you know, the gearing for this is off. I need more gears, and because I had to get off my bike and walk a couple times. Now, being a single speeder, that doesn't bother me. I have no ego attached to getting off the bike and walking. That's the sacrifice you pay sometimes for if you don't want to get off and walk on this course. Well, then you need to ride a fat tire bike, which will take you forever because of the deep sand. That's going to make you get off and walk. And also, you need to spend a ton of money on way more gearing. And you can choose, you know, where did you spend your money instead? And then it's like, I can spend my money on this other stuff instead, like say battery banks. And then I know I have that covered. And then all that means is 3 times I'm going to have to walk my bike for 10 minutes instead of riding. I'm still making forward progress, and it's nice to get off the bike, you know, so whatever, you know, who cares? Anyway, I was bitching out loud to myself because there was another guy kind of next to me, and he kind of laughed, and then he rides off up the hill, and then I look down, I'm like, he's got no rear derailleur. Oh, God dang it, he's on a single speed. So I was bitching about not having enough gears to a guy that was on the single speed. Which was funny. And then another thing that was funny that happened was the one time I fell was this kind of crappy kind of marina place, and I'd gone off course and I needed to do a U-turn. In the middle of my U-turn, I fell over. I fell over on my bike, and I got stuck in my bike and I couldn't get out of it. So I'm laying there, and plus I'm exhausted, I'm tired. It's like 8 o'clock the next morning. Been riding all this time. And I look over and there's this guy with long gray hair about 100 yards away, like kind of hanging out by his mobile home thing. And he's just looking at me, and he takes a long drag from his cigarette and then blows out this big thing of smoke, and then nothing. Didn't say, yeah, you need help or anything. No, he was just going to sit there and watch. And I thought, okay, that's fair. You know, he doesn't have to help me, and it's probably the most entertainment that he's had all day. And so, whatever. And I was okay. I didn't need help. Help would have been nice, but I didn't need it. And so those were two, like the funnier things. And okay, so I made it to Elkhart, the worst hill, and then started returning. Made it to Elkhart before it got dark. Had a chopstick sandwich, and then spent like an hour, I guess, eating in Elkhart, and just kind of taking a break. And I'd realized I'd kind of overdone it a little bit earlier, so I was like, you know, like loading up, getting ready for this, making sure I'd scaled back everything so I could make it through the night. Because the big trick to have a good result is to ride through the night without stopping. That'll make all the difference in the world, rank-wise, because a lot of people won't do it, are scared to do it, refuse to do it. And let's see if we can do it. And that'll move me way up in the rankings, which it did. And so I'm enjoying this gas station stop, loading up, and it turns nighttime. And it turns out biking at night is awesome, especially out in the middle of nowhere. There's way less traffic when you happen to be on a road, and we all have lights and stuff like that. Everything looks different, so it's a big scenery change, which is kind of cool. If it's hot, then the night's cooler, which is nice. No sunscreen needed and whatever. And then the big surprise is that lights, and I've noticed this, but I didn't realize how great it was going to be until I did it for hours, was lights on your bike are down low, right? So they're down at your handlebars and whatever, and you're up above, your eye line is up above. So when you're watching the road that's being lit up by lights that are down low, the lights down low throw shadows that you can see from up above off of anything that's rough. And remember, on these gravel bikes and such, especially if you're off-road, you are looking for the smoothest line. And so you can, better than in the daylight, you can see what's smooth and what's rough. And so, while biking at night may be slower because you got to be a little more cautious around turns, and another way it's faster because you can actually see what's smooth and what's rough, and you can avoid the rough stuff. Or you can see that there's washboard coming up, right? And it takes up most of the road except for this one little spot over there. So you can go like over there and get on your smooth spot, and it's nice. And so this goes on for a while, and I think I went through a couple of towns that are just, you know, intersections and whatever, and get some water and keep going. And the temperature dropped a little bit, and I did my trick of where I put my arm warmers back on and my neck warmer back on, and I added a third jersey, and by then that was enough layers to stay warm. And jerseys are nice if you have full front zip jerseys, because then you don't have to take off everything to get anything that's a zipper all the way down the front is nice. So and then plus pockets, right? Jerseys have pockets in the back. So I was doing that. And then I was listening to music, and I figured out how to do the battery bank, either like in a frame bag and, you know, down on the top tube, or I put the battery bank in my, where did I put it? I put it in one of my jersey pockets. And then I've got this cool trick where I have a magnetic charger, you know, for iPhones. that has a cable on it. And so the cable is like 2 foot, 3 foot long. And I plug it into a battery bank, and then I'm able to charge my phone while I'm still using it. And if a port had gotten wet from sweat or rain, doesn't matter, because I'm using the magnetic charger on the back of the phone. The only thing I need to keep dry is the battery bank on the port on the battery bank, which is easy enough to do. And I also brought 2 sets of headphones. And so when one set of headphones died, I put them on a charger at one of my stops, the charging cable, and then with electrical tape wrapped it to keep it in place. Because a lot of magnetic stuff won't stay in place, right? It'll get knocked loose. And so that was a nice little trick. And I am just riding along, listening to music all through the night and having a good time. And then I get to 4 in the morning, and my steering is getting a little wobbly. All the caffeine's starting to wear off, and I'm not eating enough, I guess. And I'm starting to feel a little bit weak. And I decided to eat. I got Cliff Bars, but I think they're in my back luggage bag, so I need to like stop to get a Cliff Bar out. And I'm going to stop and eat a Cliff Bar, and I'm going to take a break for just a minute, because that other guy took a break for like half an hour. Seems to be smart. You can do the Thomas Edison or Ben Franklin thing, where you take a cat nap and then you feel really good. So you go a long ways on like a 20-minute nap to kind of refresh you a little bit. So I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. I texted Emily and Kai, hey, I'm stopping, but I'm okay. I'm just taking a little nap. And then I'm going to keep going again. And they were like, okay, cool. And it's at 4 a.m., 3:30 a.m. And I lay down. I lay my bike against a fence. And then I lay down next to it in this ditch, which I seem to have. There's like 3 races now where I tell the story. So I'm laying in this ditch, and then there's vultures circling overhead. And I'm like, I'm just going to sit here for a little while. I'm so glad that this late in life, I'm still doing stuff like that. It's so freaking awesome, right? We have not given up on living. This is so great. So I'm like laying in this ditch, or first with my headlamp, I make sure there's no snakes. And I lay in the ditch, and then I wake up. Somebody woke me up. Something woke me up. Turns out, I look back at my Strava file about 20 minutes later, and I'd fallen. It woke me up in the middle of a REM sleep cycle. So I woke up dazed and confused. I didn't know who I was, where I was going, what I was doing, why is it so dark? You know, where am I? And I look over and I'm like, that's a cool bike. And then I'm like, oh, I think that's my bike. Oh, and it's all rigged up for like long distance stuff. And then I'm like, where am I? And then I look at my clothes, you know, and I'm like, I'm wearing racing clothes, like, bike, you know, training kit. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And I got a helmet on, you know, and it's still dark, by the way, because it's 4:30 in the morning, maybe. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm in a bike race. I'm in a bike race. That's my bike. I gotta go. I'm looking back, I think it's so funny that like I'm glad I went the right way, you know. And then looking at the aerial photo of where I was when this happened is I fell asleep in somebody's front yard, and there's national forest on the other side. I totally could have stopped in this national forest and slept amongst the trees and been safe. Although I don't know if I would have to go across a barbed wire fence. I'd have to go back and look to see if there was barbed wire fence right there. But anyway, I get on my bike and I pedal, and then it's just the rest of the way home. And the little notes on my thing said, you know, at mile 250 something, it's an 8-mile climb, and at mile 258 it is definitely downhill from 258 the rest of the way, which was nice. And those again come from my notes on the handlebars, not the bike computer. And anything on a bike computer, like if you have to look and like dig it up, it's way different than having it already written on your handlebars, where you have to, it's already there, right? And so that makes things easier. You don't want to have to do any thinking, or else you just won't do it, right? And then that'll end up getting you in trouble towards the end. You want everything to be the easiest way possible. In fact, you want things to be in your way, the important things in your way, so that you can't not do them or not notice them. So then I noticed, like, the last few hours, I'm being passed because I'm tired. And looking back now, I didn't use anywhere near all my fuel. And so instead of focusing on trying to stay with this front pack so much, well, instead of closing the gaps on the front pack, staying with the front pack's fine, but don't be the one closing the gaps. The main focus actually is fueling and hydration, because the way that I felt weak and, demoralized as people are passing you because you're weak, it just sucks, And so you're much rather focus on the right thing, which would be fueling and drinking enough, which I think I drank enough, but fueling could have been better because I had fuel left over. And I'm like, I should have gone easily through all this fuel, and I didn't, which means I underfueled. And also, another thing is, half this stuff is training, the other half is an attitude that that pretty much you can do this, unless something catastrophic happens. So that when things start to suck, it's just part of the process. You have to be process oriented, or as our Canadian friend say the process. So when you come up on this sandy road where for the second and maybe the third time you're pushing your bike through deep sand for like a quarter of a mile, you're like, well, this is just part of the process. Everybody else is having to do it. So like your mindset is like, yeah, this is just what it is. It's not that bad. And then you tell your things like, well, when I finally get through the other end of this sand, man, imagine how great I'm going to feel. It's like you got to trick yourself. You have choices on how you think, so choose positive things. And you're able to do that if you know that there's an end in sight, right? A really classic way to mess with people is like psychological warfare kind of stuff, or torture, is they just don't know when it's going to end, right? And that did kind of happen towards the end when I did take some wrong turns, and then I don't know if I'm not positive I'm on the right course anymore. I think I am. And then you're like, and this has happened to all of us, you're like, how much longer is this? Another hill? Golly, I should be done by now, And then you go around a corner and you're like, there's no finish line, another hill? And then like, geez, dude, this is taking forever, right? So one thing I would do before next year, if I do the race again, which I would like to do, I really enjoyed it, was I would go pre-drive the last few hours of the course, the last few bike hours, which would be pretty not bad in a vehicle because you'd be pretty fast. And then you're like, what the end looks like, and psychologically it'll totally help you finish doing the race, right? And you're not like, when is this ever going to end? You know exactly when it's going to end, and it ain't yet. It's when you make little notes, like you're not done until these big power lines or this one bridge, then it's going to be just a half an hour after that, like landmarks and stuff. And you just go landmark to landmark. It's a really cool trick. So I get to the finish line, and before the finish line, in my mind, I'm like really frustrated and kind of annoyed and pissed off. And I'm thinking, this is probably, and I find it funny now that I've said this. Apparently, I told Emily and Kai and my other two friends that were kind of following and helping me out, this is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And looking back now, I don't see it that way at all. I still view the 100-mile trail run as the hardest thing I've ever done. That this thing was fun up until it got hard because I didn't fuel enough, and I got kind of disoriented on the last part, and those are fixable things, you know what I mean? So I'm viewing it like, I can't wait to do another one, and I'm not worried at all. My training was good, I had the fitness, I had everything, so and I did really well, like placing wise. Even though I didn't have a strong finish, I still placed really high. So anyway, I come across the finish line, and I thought it was funny how I just told the race director, I went from, God, I freaking hate this freaking race. This is so, like, oh, this is so hard. This sucks. This is so painful. To, oh my gosh, this had so much fun. This is so great. I had the best time ever. Yay! Like that. And he's like, and I go, riding at night. It's so cool. I've never done that before. And can't wait to do that again. And he's like, yeah, it is really cool riding at night, huh? And I go, yeah. And anyway, so now we're back at the campground kind of thing. So the whole setup for this race is stationed around the Bullet, maybe it's called the Bullet House or something like that, bar and grill. And it's a play on the name of the place. Point Blank, Texas is the name of the town, but it's not. It's named after the Blancs. It's French people, and it's a high ground, and so that's why it's named Point. It's not named after shooting somebody in the face with a gun. So, but they play on that. So it's the Bullet House Grill has big TVs, and they put up on the TVs. They put up a map of the tracker of everybody. And so you can still see like people where they are. And then the food is amazing. It's a bar and grill, but they do a really good job of the grill. I had a habanero burger and some kind of fancy French fries, and they do and egg rolls and stuff. And it's laid back, and they have a huge parking lot that's set amongst the pine trees. And then out back, they have might be a couple of acres of land that's dead flat, and that's where everybody parks their cars amongst the pine trees and such. And you camp there if you want overnight, the night before the race. Huntsville is like 20-30 minutes away, so you can get a hotel room in Huntsville and then come here and then park. But I enjoy the camping overnight if possible, because then you're right there. And what I'd done is I'd showed up at the race 30 minutes the day before the race, right? Packet pickup and sign in and all that stuff is Thursday night. So I took off Thursday and drove over there, and I got there middle of the afternoon. And by then there was a few people that had taken like the primo spots. So I still got a pretty good spot. And I was able to drive around, and it's grass and whatever. So if it's been raining, you're going to want 4-wheel drive just in case. I've heard of some people getting kind of stuck, sort of. But the funniest thing is if you're doing an off-road activity, people love pulling other people out of the mud. So I was at something, we were at Gravel Locos, and my truck got stuck and the 4-wheel drive was broken. They were ordering parts for it. And so I got stuck in the mud, and it took, Emily was like, we're stuck. And I remember like, just wait 5 minutes, dude. I mean, not even that. And somebody pulled up and goes, hey, you need to get pulled out? Because half of having four-wheel drive is using it to help other people get unstuck. That's part of the fun, you know. And I was like, don't worry about it. And it's not like living somewhere, you're not somewhere where nobody has four-wheel drive. Everybody has four-wheel drive. It's so you get pulled out pretty quick. But then I got there and took my bike off the back of my truck, started unpacking some things, and I brought a hammock with me. And I set up my hammock to sleep in, but if you're not sleeping in it, a hammock makes a really good storage rack, right? A storage sling. So I was putting stuff in that, and then I just kind of started getting my bike ready and get my stuff together. And I brought food with me in a cooler. And if you get one of these like Yeti style coolers and put some ice in it, your stuff will be cold for like 3 days. And what else did I do? Yeah, just kind of get my bike stuff together and waiting for the packet pickup was at 5. And you pick up your GPS tracker, and then the race meeting is at 7. And at 7 they showed like a slideshow and gave any last minute changes to the course, which there really weren't any. And because it was a good year of weather, there weren't much to detour around or nothing unusual. So that was nice. So no GPS changes. And by the way, I had 3 GPS units of the course, because what if one fails, and then another one fails, and then another one fails, right? You just never know. And so you might as well bring stuff that's lightweight, that's going to make all the difference in the world. And GPS units fall in that category. The only pain is loading the course into like 3 different units. And then I was surprised at how, after everything was over, that if there was any partying, it stayed at the Bullet House Grill up there at the front. And the further back you go, in this little 2 acres, the quieter it got. And I slept great. And I spent the first half of the night sleeping in the hammock, and then I moved to the back of my truck because the hammock was getting a little bit cold. So then I got up in the morning, started loading up my bike, bowl of cereal, and an egg burrito, sausage, egg, cheese burrito, and a couple cups of coffee. And then we go back to the beginning of this episode where I got on the bike and went up front for a race start at 7 a.m. And that was that. Now, after the race, I went back to my truck. I kept the keys to my truck. Where did I keep the keys to my truck? Oh, my hydration pack had a little key, keeper, little plastic clip in it. So I kept the keys to my truck in that. And then I went to my truck, propped my bike up against a tree, and then had a beer, because I had a cold beer wait for me in the cooler. That always motivates me to keep going. Oh, when you get back, you got that cold IPA. And I had that, sat there for a minute, and honestly, I blanked out. I don't remember falling asleep or where I fell asleep. But I'm guessing a few hours later, I got up, and I went back up to the grill house, which is also the finish line. I'm on a toll road, on a dirt road off to the side. There's 2 people riding horseback. That looks fun. And I always call horses the original mountain bikes and gravel bikes. So that's basically what you're doing when you're riding a horse. And if you're doing it right, you're using it for adventure. And side note, one thing that makes gravel biking so safe, because you're on the road a lot, right, between sections of dirt road, you can get way further off to the side of the road on a gravel bike than you can on a road bike. So there's like questionable shoulder and stuff. Well, you can ride it on a gravel bike, but on a road bike, you wouldn't dare. You're going to get a tire puncture. And so gravel bikes make riding on the road safer because of the durability of the tires is so much better. Anyway, that was a side note. Yeah, I had a habanero burger, egg rolls, and maybe another beer, maybe, and then hung out at the finish line for a minute. And Megan was there, Megan McKinnon, and I didn't know what place she got or anything like that, and I didn't even know really for sure what distance race she was in. I just assumed the 400. And she's sitting in a chair, and I go, "Oh, hey, Megan." I'm standing, right? And then she starts to stand up, and I'm like, "No, don't." She goes, "Nah, it's almost like it's too late." And then we talked for a minute, and I got her email or phone number or something, and I said, "Hey, we should do a podcast interview." So that might be coming, an interview with somebody that's like world class, best in the world. And this is crazy. This is how good she is compared to an average human, right? And I'm an athletic person. I get told all the time I'm amazing at what I can do and all this fitness and stuff. Yeah, I'm really good because I'm athletic, and I've spent a good amount of my time, training, right? So you could be as good as me easily, right? And Megan did 400 miles half an hour faster than I did the 285. And it's just like, holy crap, man. It's so cool to be around people that are phenomenal at something. Because one, you can learn from them, like what did you do that was different, whatever. And also you learn like what's important and what's not important, and what did they focus on that actually made the difference. And also to see how much there's a way to do these things and not struggle. She was fine. And she got third overall and first female. And I thought it was funny. She goes, I go, "How'd you do it?" She goes, "Oh, I got third overall." And I was like, "Oh." And then she goes, "First female," because it's like you kind of have to say that, I guess, because she's female. And I'm like, okay. Freaking third overall is freaking awesome. And let's see, a lot of the single speeders did way better than what you would think, because again, what I said, single speeding, you get to coast a lot more. It's harder work going uphill, but you get all this coasting time, so it kind of evens itself out. And then your bike is simpler and weighs less, so you're not that much slower than somebody with a fully geared bike. So it's always something to think about. I don't completely ever write it off. It's a very interesting way of biking. The big thing is you want to make sure you pick good gearing, whatever gear you do pick for the ride. And then I think I started packing up my stuff, and I had all afternoon to pack up my stuff. And so I took my time, which was really enjoyable. And the weather was nice. There was a couple of kids playing with a couple of dogs, and some other people kind of talking, but it was real quiet and such. And I got to experience what it was like, finishing a race towards the front. Most of the people were still out on the course, so it was nice and quiet, which is interesting. And then I just kind of sat there and basked in the afterglow of kind of like, well, and then it was, wait, let me say this first. So hour and a half drive back to the house, and I'm back at the house, and I'm done. So I always love doing races that are close by, if possible, because it makes them so much cheaper. And I'd rather do a smaller race that's close by than a huge race that's a long distance away, if possible. So, because in the end, you value your time more than anything, and if you look, awesome stuff happens nearby. So, and then once something gets really popular and huge, well, then it's fun in one way, but it's annoying in another because it's overcrowded, and so this is just the right size, right? I was able to find a nice place to park, get a place to set up a hammock, all that, because there's not too many people. Anyway, what I've noticed over the past week after finishing this is I've had a similar feeling. It's not quite as extreme, but it's the same feeling. of when I did my Ultraman. And also when I got my first big job, where I felt like I was important and I felt like I'd done something special and I was somebody, you know what I mean? It's really weird. I think it's a hormonal kind of dopamine, serotonin kind of weird effect that's going on, where you're just like, man, I did something freaking awesome, you know? And then what's cool is other things don't seem to bother you because you did something really cool. And so you have this elevated, and I wouldn't, in my case, it's not a hyper sense of I'm overly important, but it's like you're exactly as awesome and a great of a person that that you could be and that you should be, and you did it, you know what I mean? And so things just don't seem to bother you. You're like, yeah, whatever, that's okay, I just biked 285 miles. So you have this like feeling of self-importance and stuff, but it's not overly done because you actually did something. It's not artificial, it's not fake. You did something, so you deserve this feeling for a while of that you are actually pretty freaking awesome, and that's pretty cool. And like I said, I got that after doing an Ultraman, you know. And I remember, like I said, after I got my first big job, I'm like, I am somebody. All this hard work like really paid off, and this is pretty freaking great. And that's one reason to do these kinds of things, is it validates, you know, like when somebody, there's times in life where you're like, man, am I doing things right? Am I screwing up? What am I doing? You know, whatever. And this like wipes that away. Like you did something pretty amazing. You're amazing. And it's nice. It's nice. But the funny thing where it doesn't get out of control, you don't get this overinflated ego, is because no one else really cares. Right? If I walk into Walmart or the grocery store or a bank and I go, I biked 285 miles, give me $200, you know, because I'm so smart and cool, they'd be like, what? I don't care. It's all like inside, so it's really nice. So the plan for the future is I want to do the one out in Central Texas, the one where Kai and I rode the course already, most of the course, and that one's 305 miles, but it's more pavement. So I think it takes the same amount of time, and I wish it was the summer, but I'm glad it's not, because it would be deathly hot. So we have to wait until the fall when it's not so hot again. But I could easily see me doing that and enjoying the crap out of it, and taking what I've learned from this last one, you know, and saying, okay, what's the big selector? And I know one of them right off the top of my head. What's the big selectors? And then when the group starts breaking apart, just pick more appropriate people and fuel and fuel and fuel. And you will actually, and ride and share breaking the headwind with people that are about your speed, instead of cooking yourself a little bit too early, and focus on fueling. And you've got the lights, you've got the navigation, you have the bike computers, you've learned that you can pretty much lay your bike down kind of out of the sight of people and sleep, and no one will mess with you, because it is the middle of the night anyway, and you are out in the middle of nowhere anyway. Just look for snakes and make sure there's no snakes, like rattlesnakes or copperheads. And then that's about it, you know. And do an overhaul on your bike before you do it, and you can do this, you know, and you'll get another really good result. And this is kind of your new thing, that you like to do, and enjoy getting good at something until you find, you rise to the level of your incompetence. The Peter principle is, I'll get it as good at this as is possible for me until I'm not willing to make more sacrifices. I'm like, I need to spend my money on new tires on my truck, not on some kind of crazy electronic shifting or something like that, yeah, I think that's it. So I'm gonna get off the mic here in a second and look for some food, and we'll do a little post wrap up. And also, don't forget, this was possible by the training that I do, and I do Ironman style training, and then I tweak it to fit whatever the latest thing that I've signed up for is. So at any minute I could do a half Ironman. So what I do is kind of like elevated half Ironman training, actually. And then if I'm like, I'm going to do an Ironman, then, lengthen it out a little bit, do a little bit more running. If I'm going to do a ultra marathon, then I'll lengthen out the running and cut back on the biking. If I'm going to do bike packing, then I back off the running or ultra distance gravel cycling, whatever, and then do a little bit more bike work and spend my time focusing on other stuff. And so on this base of triathlon style training, you can train for everything, and everything is an option. With starting about 2 months out, you kind of modify your training to fit that one thing, and then you'll be fine. And so that coaching is available by reaching out to me at texifornia@gmail.com. I use Training Peaks. I love coaching people, and I train you actually to be able to coach yourself eventually. I explain to you, if you ask, and if you want to know, how everything works. Why are we doing hills here? Why are we not training today, but we're training tomorrow? And why are we doing easy this and hard that at this time? What's actually important? And you can find that with texifornia@gmail.com. And again, we use Training Peaks, which is the industry standard. It's $200 a month. Use me for a year, and you can do awesome stuff too. Let's wrap up with this. I talked about it a little bit. It is so cool learning the nuances of how to do a different sport. Through life, you need to keep growing and learning stuff and challenging yourself. And with bike racing, long distance ultra cycling, gravel or not, there starts to be a give and take between comfort and aerodynamics, right? Because a lot of times more comfort means less aerodynamics. So if you can somehow get more comfort and more aerodynamics, but maybe you've added some weight or something like that, well, that's okay. And weight starts to become less important because there's nothing you can do about it. So you get a little bit more comfort, but it's going to make your bike weigh a little bit more. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, but if I try to do it without the comfort add in, then it's going to be miserable, and it's going to end up making me way slower. So then what? What do you do? And the choices, and the fact that this sport is becoming really popular, it's very much like early days of triathlon, which was so exciting, where people are trying different bike designs, different strategies, different techniques, all kinds of things. What actually works, what doesn't. So we're right in that with ultra distance gravel cycling, because just what's fastest, front suspension or not? And if you're going to do front suspension, what kind of front suspension? Is it suspension stems, suspension forks? If you do a suspension fork, which is the best suspension, well, they're heavier and they're less aerodynamic. So now what? And then but a suspension stem's not as good, but it's lighter, and it depends on the course. And then how do you carry the extra gear? Do you do the under the saddle sling kind of thing, or do you do a luggage rack? What do you do, and how are you going to carry? What do you value? You find, when there is no good answer, you find out what's valuable to you. It's a big thing I've learned in Zen, right? You pose people with an unanswerable question, and it's kind of like the version of this. It's a trolley problem, right? So you can divert a trolley. Trolley's coming down the road around the track. You're at the switch. It can take two different tracks, and one track is an old lady, and the other track is a young baby. Okay, so which one do you do? So a lot of people will say, well, I'd make the trolley, unfortunately, hit the old lady, because she's lived a nice life already, contributes to society and stuff like that. The young baby's got their whole future ahead of them. It's like, okay, well, the young baby has cancer. I know this gets really dark really quick, but this is what you have to do. And has only a 10% survivability rate within the next 10 years, or next year. Now which one, right? Well, then people are like, oh crap, this is no longer easy. So which one do I pick? And so some people will be like, and the old lady is probably going to live another 10 years, and she teaches a class on environmental survival ecology to help the planet kind of stuff, or she's a librarian that helps people at an old librarian. So she's very helpful to the community. And it's like, oh, well, I guess in that case, I'd have the old lady. And you're like, okay. Well, it turns out the baby is surviving the cancer. The old lady's really racist. Like, okay, well, now I'm going to take out the old lady. And then it's like, okay, the baby, he's not racist yet, but his family is super racist. So there's a good chance he's going to grow up racist as well. And it's like, and then you start like, how much do you believe that your family can make you that versus your surroundings, or yourself, and so you get this like, so my point being is there's no good answer in gravel racing right now. Everything is up for grabs. Tire width, tire pressure, and suspension, no suspension, sleep through the night a lot, take just short naps, there's all these different ways of doing it. Aero bars, no aero bars, mountain bike, gravel bike, a single speed, not single speed, right? And so when you show up at a gravel event and an ultra distance bike packing kind of thing, you have to choose, because there is no proven formula yet. Your setup defines what you believe in. Kind of like when you go pick out a car, right? There's all these types of cars. So that's the reason people's cars become their personality, is because there's so many choices. And so what car you pick reflects what you value. And you see these bikes that are like party machines. They look like so much fun to ride, but they're not going to be very fast. And then you see these other bikes that look like super fast, but you're going to spend the time head down going as fast as you can. So which one do you value more? And you see bikes that are all speed and no comfort, and you see bikes that are all comfort and no speed, and then somewhere in between. And for example, where I'm at right now is, I believe that you can get speed through some comfort. So pick comfort if it's the type of comfort that's going to make you faster, right? But some people will pick comfort because it's the type of comfort that will enable them to chat with the person next to them more, I don't know. And some people don't do research and don't believe in science, and they will be like, I'm not going to do aero bars no matter what, because I just don't like the way they look. And it's like, but you can tell they want to be fast, and it's like, if you want to be fast, then aero bars. Just saying. Well, I don't like the way they look on a bike. And it's like, dude, you already look like a freaking clown on a bike, okay? We're dressed in these bright, wacky colors and helmets. You're wearing a helmet like you got a brain injury, okay, already. And you're worried about what your freaking bike looks like, We're in spandex shorts, and you really care what your bike looks like, So, like, there's all these values out there that you can see in yourself and others, and then you get to see yourself change. There's the whole hero's journey where you try something and then it doesn't work, or part of it doesn't work. And the only way to do it differently is you have to admit that you were wrong. And that's hard for a lot of people. But if you admit that you were wrong, then you can change, and then you can be faster. So it's really tempting to have growth and improve stuff. And then you can find out like your limits on things. You're just like, I'm just not going to do that, period. And then you find out that you value X more than Y, whatever it is. You value how it looks more than performance, which is fine too, to a point, right? Everybody values looks and everybody values performance more or less. And it depends on the area that you're even talking about of the thing. Your house versus your car versus your job versus your bike versus, I don't know, where you go on vacation and what you post on social media. You value looks different than performance for everything. So, where are you? That's a spectrum and a pie chart all in one. And on what slice of pie chart do you show this part of the spectrum? Anyway, I'm kind of rambling there. So, stay tuned for the next episode, and let's see what we do next. I'm pretty much recovered from the race. I ran a half marathon yesterday just for fun, and it hurt, but I liked it. And the day before yesterday, I biked almost 60 miles with Gary. It was nice to get out on the open bike. And I swam once last week, and then I would have swam one more time except the weather. And so we're going to get back to half Ironman training and see how things go. All right. Everybody stay safe out there. Work the uphills, cruise the downhills, and keep the rubber side down. Out.